The Palomino mare stood rooted to the red earth as if the desert itself had claimed her hooves. Ohiteka felt the animal's muscles bunch beneath him, the tremor that ran through her flanks when danger lurked close. But this wasn't the alert stillness of a predator nearby. This was different. The horse refused to move forward, refused to turn away, her nostrils flaring wide as she tested the wind coming from the narrow split in the sandstone cliffs ahead. Easy. Ohiteka murmured in Lakota, his voice low and steady. He'd owned this mare for 2 years, bought her at a cavalry auction in Rapid City after the army reduced its western posts. She was calm in storms, steady under gunfire, but now she planted her front hooves and whinnied a sound, caught between warning and distress. Ohiteka dismounted in one fluid motion, his moccasins silent on the dust. The sun beat down merciless and white, turning the canyon walls to copper. It was late July, 1884, and the heat shimmered in waves across the broken landscape of Red Mesa, South Dakota Territory. He was 3 days into a scouting contract for the Deadwood to Buffalo Gap freight line, checking whether the recent rains had washed out the canyon passages their wagons needed. So far, the trails were passable. So far, everything had been routine. Until now. He studied the ground. 3 sets of hoof-prints, iron-shod horses, leading toward the cave entrance hidden behind juniper scrub and shadow. The tracks were fresh made within the last 2 hours, judging by the sharp edges and the moisture still clinging to the disturbed soil where morning dew had settled. Boot prints accompanied them, men's sizes, deliberate strides. The men had dismounted, entered the cave, but there were no exit tracks yet. Smoke. Faint but unmistakable, drifting from the cave mouth. Someone had built a fire inside. Ohiteka checked the Winchester rifle slung across his back. A Model 1866 brass framed the mechanism, smooth from careful maintenance. He'd traded 2 weeks' wages for it, and it had saved his life twice already. 14 rounds in the magazine. He levered one into the chamber with a quiet metallic click, then approached the cave entrance in a crouch, using the scrub and scattered boulders for cover. The Palomino followed without being led, positioning herself at the cave mouth as if standing guard. Her ears swiveled forward, listening. Ohiteka paused, letting his eyes adjust to the darkness beyond the sunlight. The cave smelled of wood smoke, old stone, and something else, something human and fearful. Sweat, urine, desperation. 2 shapes pressed against the far wall 20 feet back, half hidden behind a tumble of fallen rocks. Small shapes. Too small to be adults. Ohiteka's breath caught. Children. His mind flashed back unbidden. He was 8 years old again, crouched in a similar cave in the Black Hills, hiding from soldiers who'd come to take boys from his village for translating work. His mother had pushed him into the rocks, whispered, "Run if they find you," and then led the soldiers away from his hiding place. He'd stayed silent for 2 days before an uncle found him. His mother had been arrested, held for 3 months before release. He'd never forgotten the taste of that fear, dry and metallic like sucking on a coin. These children knew that taste. He could see it in the rigid way they held themselves, the desperate stillness of prey, hoping the predator would pass. He took 3 slow steps forward into the cave's threshold, letting the light from behind silhouette him, but keeping his hands visible. The children flinched, pressing harder against the stone. One was older, maybe 13, clutching a sharp rock in her fist like a weapon. The younger one, perhaps 11, clung to her sister's arm, eyes wide and feral. They wore only cotton chemises, the undergarments women wore beneath dresses. The fabric was torn, stained with dirt and dried blood at the hems. Their feet were bare and blistered. Their hair hung in tangled mats past their shoulders. They looked feral, like young coyotes, trapped in a snare, ready to bite or flee the moment an opening appeared. Ohiteka stopped. He set the rifle carefully against the cave wall, close enough to reach if needed, far enough that the children couldn't grab it. Then he unhooked the leather water skin from his belt, uncorked it with his teeth, and held it out at arm's length. "Drink," he said in English, his accent careful. The word hung in the smoky air between them. Neither child moved. The older girl's knuckles whitened around her rock. The younger one whimpered a sound so soft it barely reached him, but it cut through the silence like a blade. Ohiteka set the water skin on the ground. He took 3 steps backward, hands open at his sides, and waited. His knees protested the stillness he'd been riding since dawn, but he didn't shift. Patience was survival. His father had taught him that before soldiers killed him at the Powder River skirmish in 1876. Patience and the ability to read fear in others. These girls were terrified. Not of him specifically, but of what he represented: another man, another threat, another person who might hurt them. 30 seconds passed. A full minute. The older girl whispered something to the younger one, too quiet for Ohiteka to hear. Then she darted forward faster than he expected, snatched the water skin, and scrambled back to the wall. She lifted it to her sister's lips first. The younger girl drank in frantic gulps, water spilling down her chin and soaking the front of her chemise. She choked, coughed, kept drinking. The older girl pulled the water skin away, tilted it to her own mouth, and drank with her eyes locked on Ohiteka. Watching, waiting for him to move. He stayed still. When the water skin was half empty, the older girl lowered it, wiping her mouth with the back of her hand. Her voice came out hoarse, damaged by thirst and screaming. "Are you going to hurt us?" "No. They said someone would come. They said if we ran, someone would catch us and take us back." "Who said that?" The girl's jaw trembled. "The man with the yellow scarf. He calls himself Tom. He grins all the time, even when he—" She stopped, swallowed hard. "Even when he hurts people." Ohiteka's hands clenched at his sides. He forced them open. "I'm not taking you back. I'm getting you out." "Why?" The question was blunt, raw with suspicion. Ohiteka met her eyes gray like storm clouds and spoke the truth. "Because no one helped me when I needed it. I won't make that mistake." The younger girl whispered, "Marion, I'm scared." Marion, the older one. She tucked the water skin against her chest and edged forward slightly close enough that Ohiteka could see the bruises on her arms, the rope burns on her wrists. "We ran from the mine. Lightning Ridge. They kept us in the sheds. Made us sort rocks 12 hours a day, sometimes more. Lucinda, she's a widow who worked in the cookhouse. She stole something for us. A book. She said it was proof. She said if we could get it to the law, they'd have to stop." "Stop what?" Marion's voice dropped to a whisper. "Selling us." The word settled over Ohiteka like a cold wind despite the cave's stifling heat. He'd heard rumors, whispers in saloons, fragments of conversations between freight workers about children disappearing, about those orphan trains back east being twisted into something darker. He'd dismissed them as exaggeration, the kind of tall tales drifters told to pass time. But looking at these girls, at their skeletal frames and haunted eyes, he knew the rumors were pale shadows of a brutal truth. "Where's the book?" Marion crawled to the corner of the cave, reached behind a flat stone and pulled out a canvas-wrapped bundle. She hesitated, then brought it to Ohiteka, stopping just out of arm's reach. He took it carefully, unwrapped the canvas. A ledger, bound in black leather pages, filled with neat columns written in ink. Freight mark symbols denoting cargo types and destinations. Numbers that meant nothing to him at first glance. Dates spanning 4 years, and names. Children's names, dozens of them listed like inventory. Beside each name, a dollar amount. Some entries had notes in cramped handwriting, placed, Chicago transferred, St. Louis paid in full. Denver. Ohiteka's stomach turned. This wasn't adoption. This was bookkeeping for human merchandise. On the cave wall behind the girls, someone had scratched words in charcoal read Mesa G. An arrow pointed toward what Ohiteka knew was the freight road leading back to Buffalo Gap. G, he said. Who's that Goldie? That's what the workers call him. The boss. He owns part of the mine in the freight company. His real name is Julius Merrick. Ohiteka had heard that name. Merrick was a big man in the territory, ran freight wagons, had stakes in several mining operations, wore a gold watch chain, and paid his hired guns in gold coins when he wanted their absolute loyalty. People said he was ruthless, but fair. Ohiteka revised that assessment. Ruthless, yes. Fair, no. Marion added, "We've been hiding here 2 days. We ran when Lucinda gave us the ledger. But they're looking for us. Tom and his men. They'll come back." As if summoned by her words, the Palomino snorted a sharp warning sound. Ohiteka moved to the cave entrance, staying low. In the distance, dust rose against the pale blue sky. 3 riders coming fast along the canyon floor, maybe 5 minutes out. Even at this distance, he could see the yellow bandanas around their necks, bright as warning flags. The lead rider's white teeth flashed in the sun. Grinning Tom. Ohiteka grabbed the ledger, wrapped it quickly, and tucked it inside his shirt against his skin. He turned to the girls. "Can you ride?" Marion nodded. "A little. We used to before." She stopped, didn't finish. "Then we go now. Stay close to me." He helped Marion onto the Palomino's back first, then lifted Phoebe, the younger girl, light as a bundle of sticks behind her sister. The horse shifted under the weight, but held steady. Ohiteka took the reins and led them out the back of the cave, where the rocks formed a natural ramp down into a dry wash, a seasonal stream bed carved deep into the sandstone, offering cover and a path away from the approaching riders. They moved quickly, but not running. Running would create dust, and dust would betray their position. The wash twisted between high walls, the air cooler in the shade, the sand soft under the horses' hooves. Ohiteka glanced back. The riders had reached the cave entrance. Tom's voice echoed off the canyon walls, distorted but audible. "They were here. Tracks are fresh." The wash narrowed ahead. Ohiteka spotted a shadow under an overhang, a space carved by ancient floods, just large enough to hide 2 small bodies. He stopped, lifted the girls down, and pressed them into the shadow. Marion clutched Phoebe, both of them trembling. "Don't move," Ohiteka said. "Don't make a sound. I'll lead them away." "What if they catch you?" Marion whispered. "They won't." He handed her the water skin, mounted the Palomino, and rode back toward the mouth of the wash. He positioned himself where the passage widened, where he had a clear line of sight and cover behind a boulder. The Winchester felt solid in his hands. Tom appeared first, riding a bay gelding, flanked by 2 other men, one young, maybe 20, with nervous eyes. The other older, scarred, chewing tobacco. All 3 carried rifles. Tom reined in when he saw Ohiteka, his perpetual grin widening. Well now, didn't expect to find a Lakota scout playing nursemaid. Tom's voice was friendly, conversational, the tone of a man discussing weather. "Heard you were honest work, Ohiteka. Guess I heard wrong." Ohiteka said nothing. He levered the Winchester, the sound deliberate and clear. Tom raised his hand, still grinning. "Easy now. No need for that. We're just here for what's ours. That ledger you got tucked in your shirt, that's company property. Belongs to Mr. Merrick. He'd like it back. No harm done, no questions asked. Just hand it over and ride away." "No." The grin faltered just for a second. "You're making a mistake, friend. Mr. Merrick doesn't take kindly to theft. This isn't theft. It's evidence." Evidence. Tom laughed, and the other two men joined in, though theirs sounded forced. Evidence of what business transactions Mr. Merrick runs a legitimate operation. Those kids signed contracts same as anyone else. Children can't sign contracts. Their guardians did, all legal. You got no right to interfere. Ohiteka adjusted his aim slightly, pointing the rifle at the ground near Tom's horse. Turn around, leave. Tom's grin vanished. His hand drifted toward the pistol on his hip. Can't do that. Ohiteka fired. The bullet struck the dirt 6 inches from Tom's stirrup, kicking up a spray of sand and rock. The bay gelding reared, nearly throwing Tom, who cursed and grabbed the saddle horn. The other two men yanked their rifles up, but they were 40 yards out too far for accurate pistol work, and Ohiteka had cover. Next one won't miss, Ohiteka said quietly. Tom wrestled his horse under control, his face flushed red beneath his tan. For a moment, Ohiteka thought he'd charge anyway, pride overcoming sense. Then Tom spat into the dust and jerked his reins around. Fine, we'll wait. He gestured to his men, and they backed their horses toward the canyon mouth. Sun's getting high, Scout. Let's see how long you last out here with 2 brats and 1 water skin. We got time, we got supplies, and we got orders. They rode back 50 yards and dismounted in the shade of a rock overhang where they could watch the wash exit without exposing themselves. Settling in for a siege. Ohiteka returned to the girls. Marion's face was pale. Phoebe's tears had left clean tracks through the dirt on her cheeks. He knelt beside them. We need to move. There's another way through the canyon, a slot passage. It's narrow, but it leads to a seep where bighorn sheep drink. We'll have water there and shade. Can you walk? Marion looked at Phoebe's feet, raw and bleeding, and then at her own. We'll try. That's all I ask. He tore strips from his cotton shirt, the fabric already soaked with sweat, and wrapped their feet as best he could, tying the cloth tight to protect the blisters. Marion bit her lip, but didn't cry out. Phoebe whimpered softly, and Marion put an arm around her shoulders. We're going to be okay, Marion told her sister, and Ohiteka heard the desperate hope in her voice, the hope of a child trying to convince herself as much as comfort another. They walked. The slot canyon was mercifully cool, the walls so close, Ohiteka could touch both sides with his arms outstretched. The palomino followed her body, blocking the passage behind them, an extra layer of protection. Phoebe stumbled every few steps, and Marion half-carried her. Ohiteka offered to carry Phoebe himself, but the girl shrank back so he didn't press. Trust took time. After half a mile, the passage opened into a small bowl surrounded by red cliffs. A dark stain marked the rocks where water seeped from a crack in the stone, not a flow, just a steady drip, but enough. Ohiteka cupped his hands beneath it, catching the cool water, and offered it to Phoebe first. She drank, gagged, and vomited into the sand. Marion held her hair back, murmuring reassurances. Ohiteka waited, then offered the water again. This time Phoebe kept it down. Marion drank next, then Ohiteka refilled the water skin, a process that took 10 minutes as the seep was slow. He rationed out strips of dried venison from his saddlebag, tough, salty jerky that required long chewing. The girls ate slowly, their shrunken stomachs struggling to process food after days of near starvation. Ohiteka ate nothing, saving his portion for later. They would need it more than he did. The sun climbed toward noon. The temperature in the bowl rose despite the shade. Ohiteka climbed the rocks, moving quietly, scanning the canyon rim. Movement: 2 riders on the high ground, moving parallel to the slot canyon. They hadn't found the seep yet, but they were searching methodically. Tom wasn't stupid. He knew this country knew where water could be found. Ohiteka descended and found the girls huddled together under a narrow ledge seeking the deepest shade. Marion looked up at him. "Are they close?" "Close enough. We'll rest until dusk, then move. It'll be cooler and harder for them to track us in the dark." "Where are we going?" "Buffalo Gap. There's law there, a sheriff, a federal marshal who passes through, and—" He paused. "You said you had a sister, Eliza. Is she in Buffalo Gap?" Marion's eyes filled with tears. "I don't know. It's been 4 years. She might have left. She might have—" Her voice broke. "She might think we're dead. If she's there, we'll find her." Phoebe whispered, "I don't remember what she looks like." Marion pulled her close. "She has dark hair, brown eyes. She used to sing to us at night. Remember, she'd sing about the mockingbird." Phoebe nodded slowly, the memory surfacing. "Hush, little baby. That's right." Ohiteka looked away, giving them privacy for their grief and hope. He checked his ammunition, 30 rounds left for the Winchester, plus the Colt revolver on his hip with 6 rounds. Enough for a fight if it came to that, but he'd prefer to avoid one. Bullets attracted attention, and he didn't know how many men Merrick could call on. As the sun dipped toward the western rim, casting long shadows across the bowl, Ohiteka built a tiny fire using dry juniper twigs that produced almost no smoke. He toasted cornmeal in his tin cup, mixing it with a little water to form a thick paste. He gave it all to Marion and Phoebe, watching as they ate with their fingers savoring each bite. "Why are you helping us?" Marion asked again, as if the answer might have changed. Ohiteka fed small sticks to the fire, considering. "When I was young, soldiers came to our village. They wanted boys to translate to help them communicate with other bands. They took 3 of us. I escaped after 2 weeks. Ran through country I didn't know without food or water. I came to a farmhouse, a white family. The man saw me, raised his rifle, and chased me off. I nearly died before my uncle found me." He paused, remembering the burn of thirst, the weakness that made each step an ordeal. "I think about that farmer sometimes. He could have helped. He chose not to. I chose differently." Marion nodded slowly. Phoebe leaned against her sister's eyes, drifting closed, despite the fear that surely still gripped her. "She's safe," Marion whispered. "Phoebe. She's the one I worry about most. She's been through." She stopped, shook her head. "Things no child should see. You both have." "Yes, but I'm older. I remember before. Before Pike sold us, before the mine, before the sheds and the men and the—" She stopped again, biting down on the words she couldn't or wouldn't say. Ohiteka didn't push. Some stories needed time. As darkness fell, voices drifted from above. Ohiteka motioned for absolute silence. The girls froze, barely breathing. He pressed himself against the cliff face, listening. "If we don't find that ledger, Goldie's going to skin us alive." One of Tom's men voice carrying in the still night air. "Every name in that book is proof. Goldie'll handle it." Tom confident as ever. "He's got the sheriff in his pocket, and there's someone else helping came into town few weeks back, keeps to himself. But Goldie says he's got a personal stake in keeping those brats quiet." "Who?" "Don't know. Goldie doesn't share names unless you need 'em. But whoever it is, he's been useful. Cut the clinic's water barrels, left threats. Works quiet." Ohiteka's jaw tightened. So there was another player, someone in Buffalo Gap itself working for Merrick from the inside. Someone the girls might recognize if they saw him. The voices faded as the men moved on, continuing their patrol. Ohiteka waited 15 minutes and then whispered, "We move now. Stay behind me. Step where I step." They traveled through the night, following game trails that Ohiteka knew from previous scouting work. The moon was 3/4 full, providing enough light to avoid the worst hazards. The girls stumbled off in exhaustion and pain, making every step an ordeal, but they didn't complain. Marianne supported Phoebe when she faltered. Ohiteka led the Palomino, using the horse as a windbreak when the night air turned cold. Near midnight, they stopped to rest. Ohiteka showed Marianne how to catch condensation from the metal canteen by holding it in the cool air and letting droplets form, then tipping them into the tin cup. Not much water, but every bit helped. He showed Phoebe how to listen to coyote howls, the pattern and rhythm that told you how far away they were, whether they were hunting or just communicating. "You know a lot." Phoebe said, her voice small in the darkness. "I've lived out here most of my life. You learn or you die." "Are we going to die?" Ohiteka looked at her directly. "No, I promise." Promises were dangerous things to make easily broken by circumstances beyond control, but Phoebe needed hope more than she needed brutal honesty. Marian met his eyes over her sister's head. And something passed between them, an understanding, a shared burden. When coyotes howled from the ridge above, closer than before, the Palomino stepped toward the girls unbidden, lowering her head near Phoebe's shoulder. The girl reached up tentatively and touched the horse's soft muzzle. The mare didn't pull away. "She likes you," Ohiteka said. "What's her name?" "She doesn't have one. I just call her Horse." Marian smiled, the first real smile Ohiteka had seen on her face. "That's not very creative." "I'm a scout, not a poet." They rested another hour, then pushed on. By dawn, the landscape had changed. Less canyon, more open prairie rolling toward the cluster of buildings that marked Buffalo Gap. Smoke rose from chimneys. The morning freight wagons were already rolling out, drivers cracking whips over mule teams, the sound carrying across the flat land. Ohiteka kept to the outskirts, approaching from the south where fewer people would notice. Buffalo Gap was a small town, maybe 200 permanent residents more when miners came in from Lightning Ridge, or ranchers drove cattle to the railhead 20 miles east. The buildings were a mix of wood and adobe, sun-bleached and weathered. The main street featured a telegraph office, an assay office, where miners tested ore samples, a feed store, the Long Shadow Saloon, and Dr. Frederick Ames's clinic, a narrow 2-story building with a crooked tin roof and peeling white paint. A woman swept the clinic's front steps, her movements efficient and practiced. She wore a faded blue cotton dress, her dark hair tied back with a simple ribbon, her face lean and serious. As Ohiteka watched, she paused, stretching her back, and he saw the calluses on her hands, even from 50 feet away, the marks of someone who worked with needle and thread for hours each day. Marian gasped. "That's her. That's Eliza." Before Ohiteka could stop her, Marian slid off the horse and ran toward the clinic, Phoebe scrambling after her. Eliza looked up at the sound of running feet, turned and froze. The broom fell from her hands, clattering on the wooden steps. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Marian stopped 10 feet away, suddenly uncertain, as if afraid this might be a dream that would shatter if she moved too close. "Eliza!" Marian's voice cracked. Eliza's face crumpled. She ran down the steps and dropped to her knees in the dust, pulling both girls into her arms, with a cry that was half sob, half keening wail. She held them so tightly they could barely breathe, her whole body shaking. "You're alive." She whispered the words, broken and desperate. "You're alive, you're alive, you're real." Phoebe burst into tears, clinging to Eliza's neck. Marian cried silently, her thin shoulders heaving. Eliza touched their faces, their hair, their hands, as if needing physical proof that they weren't ghosts. A man appeared in the clinic doorway, Dr. Frederick Ames, 60s, gray-haired with the tired eyes of someone who'd seen too much suffering. He took one look at the scene and said, "Inside, now." before half the town comes to gawk. Eliza helped the girls up, supporting them as they climbed the steps on blistered feet. Ohiteka tied the palomino to the porch rail and followed. Inside the clinic smelled of carbolic soap and dried herbs. A pot-bellied stove radiated warmth in one corner. Despite the summer heat, Dr. Ames kept a pot of broth simmering constantly for patients who needed it. The doctor ladled broth into 2 tin cups and handed them to the girls. Slow sips. Your stomachs aren't ready for much. They obeyed, drinking carefully. Eliza sat beside them at the wooden table, one hand on Marion's shoulder and the other holding Phoebe's hand, as if letting go might make them vanish again. She looked at Ohiteka, her eyes red and wet, but fierce with a determination he recognized. "Who did this?" Ohiteka pulled the ledger from inside his shirt and set it on the table. "Men who ship cargo, who treat children as cargo." Dr. Ames opened the ledger, his expression darkening with each page he turned. He stopped at one entry, his finger trembling. This is a bill of sale. This is kidnapping and selling children like cattle." Eliza leaned over to look. Her breath caught sharply. There, in neat handwriting, was a name that drove a spike of ice through her chest: Ricardo Pike. Her stepfather's signature, dated August 14th, 1880, 4 years ago. Beside it, 2 entries: Marion Hart, age 9, $120. Phoebe Hart, age 7, $82. Payment received in full. The room tilted. Eliza gripped the table edge, her knuckles white. "He sold them," she whispered. "He looked me in the eye and lied, and he sold them for $200. Dr. Ames put a steadying hand on her shoulder. "We'll take this to the law." "Carefully," Ohiteka warned. "I heard talk last night there's a sheriff involved and someone else in town working for the operation. Someone who's been here recently, someone Merrick trusts." "Sheriff Garrett." Dr. Ames's face darkened. "Bitter Sam. That makes sense. He's ambitious, owes debts. But who else?" Marion spoke up, her voice still hoarse. "There was a man who came to the mine sometimes. We only saw him once from a distance. He talked to Goldie in the office. We couldn't hear what they said, but Goldie treated him different, respectful, like he was important. He had a limp, walked with his left leg stiff." A limp. Ohiteka filed that detail away. "We need allies. People we can trust absolutely." "Sarah Callan," Dr. Ames said immediately. "The school teacher. She's got a good head and no patience for corruption. Owen Reed at Brown Bear Crossing, honest farmer, trades fair with everyone. And there's a few others." "We need the federal marshal," Eliza said, her voice steadying. "Shadow Lake has one. Marshal Cooper. He's honest." "Then we send a telegram," Dr. Ames decided. "But carefully. If Garrett's involved, he might have someone watching the telegraph office." They spent the morning planning. Sarah Callan arrived first, a woman in her mid-30s, wearing a simple gray dress and wire-rimmed spectacles. She took one look at the girls, then at the ledger, and her expression hardened into something fierce and protective. "We'll need to hide them," Sarah said. "The schoolhouse has a backroom storage space with a window that bars and a door that locks. I can keep them there during the day, teach them, keep them occupied. If anyone comes looking, I'll say I'm tutoring new students." Owen Reed came next, a weathered farmer of 50, who'd heard about the commotion and rode in to see if Dr. Ames needed help. When he saw the ledger, when he heard Marion's testimony about the night wagons carrying children like freight, his weathered face went hard as granite. "I've seen those wagons," he said quietly. "Never questioned them. I should have." "You're here now," Eliza told him. "That's what matters." They agreed on roles. Sarah would hide and protect the girls. Dr. Ames would document everything medically, the evidence of abuse, malnutrition, forced labor. Owen would quietly spread word to people he trusted, building a network of support. And Eliza and Ohiteka would go to the telegraph office to contact Marshal Cooper in Shadow Lake. "Be careful," Dr. Ames warned. "If there's someone working for Merrick in town, they might be watching." Eliza nodded. She went upstairs to her small room above the clinic and returned wearing a different dress, darker blue with deeper pockets. Ohiteka noticed she moved differently too, more deliberately, and he realized she'd armed herself. Smart. They walked to the telegraph office together, staying alert, watching for anyone paying too much attention. The office was a small building on Main Street with a Western Union sign and a window overlooking the dusty road. Inside, a young man with nervous hands and a thin mustache looked up from his desk. Gustav, a German immigrant who operated the telegraph. "Miss Hart," he said, his accent thick. "What can I do for you?" "I need to send a telegram to Marshal Cooper in Shadow Lake. Urgent." Gustav's hands trembled slightly as he reached for his message pad. "Of course. What is the message?" Eliza dictated carefully. "Federal Marshal Cooper, Shadow Lake. Evidence discovered of men kidnapping children and selling them in Buffalo Gap and Lightning Ridge. Many victims. Request immediate assistance. Eliza Hart, care of Dr. Ames's clinic." Gustav wrote it down, his face pale. This is serious accusation. It's the truth," Ohiteka said quietly from where he stood by the door watching the street. Gustav nodded, swallowing hard. He moved to the telegraph key and began tapping out the message. The metallic clicks filled the small office, each one seeming too loud, too obvious. Eliza watched the street through the window, her heart pounding. Any moment someone might burst in, might try to stop them. The message finished. Gustav looked up. "Sent. Marshal should receive within the hour." "Thank you," Eliza said. "Please don't tell anyone about this. Not yet." "I understand." Gustav's voice dropped to a whisper. "My sister, in the old country before we came here. Something similar happened to her. I know what this evil looks like. I will help however I can." They left quickly, taking a different route back to the clinic. As they walked, Ohiteka noticed things: a man standing in the alley across from the telegraph office watching. Another man on a roof, pretending to repair shingles, but positioned where he could see the main street. Tom's people or Merrick's. The net was tightening. That afternoon, Eliza was hanging laundry behind the clinic when she heard glass breaking. She ran around to the front and found the water barrels, 3 of them precious supply, in the August heat, slashed open, the wood split by deliberate axe cuts. Water pooled in the dust, already soaking into the thirsty earth. Dr. Ames came running out. "Who would—" Eliza found a scrap of paper pinned to one of the barrels with a knife. The message was written in crude block letters: "Stop talking or start bleeding." She showed it to Dr. Ames and Ohiteka, her hands steady despite the fear coiling in her gut. "They're trying to scare us." "Are they succeeding?" Dr. Ames asked. "No. But that was a lie, and they all knew it." Eliza was terrified for herself, for her sisters, for everyone who'd chosen to help. But fear wasn't enough to make her stop. That night, someone left barbed wire coiled in Eliza's sewing basket, sharp enough to tear through fabric or flesh, a pointed threat to her livelihood and safety. She showed it to the others during their evening meeting at the clinic. "Whoever's doing this knows your routines," Ohiteka observed. "Knows where you work, where you keep your things. This isn't random intimidation. This is targeted." "The inside man," Sarah said. "The one Marion mentioned. Someone with a limp?" Ohiteka nodded. "We need to figure out who it is. Someone who's been in Buffalo Gap recently, Someone who moves freely, but isn't well known yet. There's a few drifters in town, Owen offered. Prospectors, gamblers, men looking for work. Any of them could be hiding something. We'll watch for the limp, Dr. Ames said. Mary and Phoebe, if you see anyone in town who matches the man from the mine, you tell us immediately. Don't approach, don't speak, just find one of us. The girls nodded, their faces solemn. That night, Ohiteka stationed himself on the clinic roof, with his Winchester keeping watch. Eliza brought him coffee at midnight, climbing the ladder with a tin cup in each hand. She sat beside him, careful not to silhouette against the sky. Do you think we'll win? She asked quietly. Winning and surviving aren't always the same thing. That's not an answer. No, it's not. He paused. I think if you're willing to fight, you have a chance. Most people aren't willing. They look away, tell themselves it's not their problem. You didn't do that. I failed them for 4 years. You searched for 4 years. That's not failure. Eliza blinked back tears. She wouldn't cry, not now, not when there was still so much to do. Tell me about your family. Ohiteka didn't answer immediately. When he spoke, his voice was distant, as if recounting someone else's story. My father was killed in a skirmish with soldiers when I was 6. My mother raised me and my sister until the army decided they wanted the Black Hills for gold. They moved us to a reservation. My sister died of fever that winter, too many people, not enough food or medicine. My mother grieved herself to death the following spring. I left after that. I was 14. I'm sorry. So am I. But grief doesn't change the past. It only teaches you what to protect in the future. They sat in silence, shoulders almost touching, sharing the warmth of coffee and companionship. Below Buffalo Gap slept uneasily, its streets empty but watchful. Your sisters are strong, Ohiteka said. They survived because they're like you, stubborn. Eliza smiled despite everything. That's not a compliment where I come from. It is where I come from. Their eyes met in the darkness, and something passed between them, not quite understanding, but the beginning of it. A recognition of kindred spirits shaped by loss and hardship into people who refused to surrender. The moment stretched, then broke, when the Palomino whinnied softly from the stable behind the clinic. Ohiteka tensed, listening. False alarm, just a cat prowling near the hay. He relaxed, but only slightly. Eliza finished her coffee and descended the ladder, leaving Ohiteka to his vigil. She lay in her narrow bed, thinking about the fight ahead, about the man on the roof protecting them, about what it meant to trust someone so completely after years of disappointment. Sleep came eventually, thin and troubled. The next morning, Dr. Ames was at the general store buying medical supplies when he noticed a man browsing the whiskey bottles, middle-aged, wearing worn clothes with a dusty hat pulled low. The man moved to the counter to pay, and Dr. Ames noticed the limp. The left leg moved stiffly, as if an old injury had never healed properly. Dr. Ames paid for his supplies and left quickly, returning to the clinic. He found Ohiteka, Eliza, and Sarah gathered around the table. I saw him, Dr. Ames said. Man with a limp at the general store, buying whiskey, keeping his head down. Didn't recognize him, which means he's not a regular. Could be our inside man, Ohiteka said. Or just a prospector passing through. We need to know for sure, Eliza said. Marianne, can you look at him from a distance, somewhere safe? Marianne nodded, her face pale but determined. That afternoon, she and Sarah went to the general store under the pretense of buying school supplies. The man with the limp was there again, this time buying tobacco. Marianne watched him from behind a shelf, her heart pounding. When they returned to the clinic, Marianne was shaking. It's him, I'm sure. That's the man who came to Lightning Ridge. I remember the way he walks, the way he holds his shoulders. It's him. So they had confirmation. An inside man working for Merrick, currently in Buffalo Gap. But who was he really, and how were they supposed to stop him when they didn't even know his name? The answer came from an unexpected source. That evening, Owen returned from Brown Bear Crossing with news. Asked around about strangers in town. There's a man staying at the boarding house, paid for 2 weeks in advance, keeps to himself, calls himself Jack Delaney. Says he's a prospector, but he's got clean hands. No rock dust, no calluses. Just drinks and watches people. Delaney, Dr. Ames repeated. Never heard that name before. But Eliza had. Her face went white. Jack was my stepfather's middle name. Ricardo Jack Pike. He went by Jack sometimes when he was gambling and didn't want people to know his real name. The room fell silent. Then Ohiteka said quietly, Pike is here, in Buffalo Gap. He's the inside man. Eliza's hands clenched into fists. He came back. He sold them 4 years ago, and now he's here to make sure no one finds out. To protect himself. And to help Merrick cover it up. Sarah added, if Pike's name is in that ledger, he's got as much to lose as Goldie does. They had to be careful now. Pike didn't know they'd identified him yet. He thought he was still hidden behind his false name and his whiskey-soaked prospector act. That gave them a small advantage, but not for long. That night, Pike made his move. Eliza was in her room above the clinic, mending a shirt by lamplight, when she heard footsteps on the stairs, too heavy for Dr. Ames, too purposeful. She reached for the derringer Dr. Ames had given her, hidden in her sewing basket, just as her door crashed open. Pike stood in the doorway, a pistol in his hand. He'd abandoned the drunken act. His eyes were clear, cold, calculating. Hello, Eliza. We need to talk. There's nothing to say. Oh, I think there is. You've been busy, haven't you? Stirring up trouble, making accusations. That ledger, where is it? Safe. Where you'll never find it. Pike stepped into the room, kicking the door shut behind him. You always were stubborn. Like your mother. She didn't know when to stop asking questions either. Made my life difficult. You killed her. The words came out flat, certain. Eliza had always wondered about her mother's death, the fever that came on so suddenly, the way Pike had been so eager to remarry just months later. Now she knew. Proved nothing, Pike said. Just like you'll prove nothing now. Merrick's got the sheriff, got half the town council. You're nobody, Eliza. A seamstress with delusions. Those brats should have stayed lost. Would have been better for everyone. They're my sisters. They're merchandise. $200 I got for them, and I needed every penny. Do you know what my debts were? What I owed? Selling them saved my life. And destroyed theirs. Pike shrugged. They're alive, aren't they? Working builds character. They'll thank me someday. Eliza stared at the man who'd called himself her stepfather. This stranger who could speak of children of Marion and Phoebe as commodities, and felt something cold and hard settle in her chest. Not hatred. Something colder. Resolve. You're not leaving this room with what you came for, she said quietly. Pike raised his pistol. Then you're not leaving it at all. A floorboard creaked behind him. Pike spun, but too slow. Ohiteka had come up the back stairs, moving silent as smoke. He grabbed Pike's gun hand, twisted, and the pistol fired into the ceiling. Plaster rained down. Pike struggled surprisingly strong for a middle-aged drunk, but Ohiteka was stronger and faster. He wrenched the gun free and slammed Pike against the wall. Dr. Ames burst in, followed by Owen and Sebastian Cardenas, a Mexican teamster who'd been standing watch outside. They tied Pike's hands with rope, securing him to a chair. "Well," Dr. Ames said, breathing hard, "I think we have our inside man." Pike glared at them, his mask finally dropped completely. "You're all fools. Merrick will bury you. You have no idea how deep this goes, how many people are involved. The sheriff, the mayor, the mining company owners, they're all in on it. You can't win." "Maybe," Eliza said, "but we're going to try." They locked Pike in the clinic's storage room, a windowless space where Dr. Ames kept supplies. Owen stood guard while they decided what to do next. Marshal Cooper hadn't arrived yet, and Sheriff Garrett couldn't be trusted. They needed a plan. "We need to draw Merrick out," Owateka said. "Force him to make a move before Pike's disappearance tips him off that something's wrong." "How?" Sarah asked. "Tell him we'll trade," Eliza said slowly, an idea forming. "Tell him we'll give back the ledger in exchange for safe passage out of the territory. He'll never agree, but it'll get him into the open." "He'll bring men," Owen warned. "A lot of them." "Good," Owateka said. "Let him bring them all. Into town where everyone can see. Where his corruption becomes public." They sent word through Tom he'd been hanging around the Long Shadow Saloon, still on Merrick's payroll, but increasingly nervous about the whole situation. Owen approached him with the message, "Eliza Hart wants to make a deal. Ledger for safe passage. Meet at the schoolhouse tomorrow at noon." Tom took the message, his eternal grin wavering. "You're making a mistake. Goldie doesn't make deals." "Then he can come and tell us himself," Owen replied. Tom rode off toward Lightning Ridge, and they prepared for tomorrow. They had one chance to expose Merrick publicly, to force the town to choose sides. It was risky. It was desperate. But it was all they had. The storm came at dawn, not the confrontation they expected, but a real storm rolling in from the west, with black clouds and the smell of rain. By mid-morning, the first drops were falling huge and heavy, turning the dust to mud. "Flash flood weather," Owateka said, studying the sky. "If this keeps up, the canyon trails will be impassable by afternoon." They were gathered at the schoolhouse, waiting for Merrick. Sarah had moved the girls to Owen's farm for safety. If shooting started, she wanted them far away. The schoolhouse was empty, except for their group: Owateka, Eliza, Dr. Ames, Owen, Sebastian, and Gustav from the telegraph office, who'd insisted on helping despite his fear. At 11:30, riders appeared, not from the road, but from multiple directions surrounding the schoolhouse. 8 men, all armed. And Julius Goldie Merrick himself, resplendent in his gold watch chain and expensive coat, riding a fine black horse. Behind him came Sheriff Bitter Sam Garrett, wearing his badge-like armor, a shotgun across his saddle. Merrick reined in outside the schoolhouse and called out, "Miss Hart, I understand you have something of mine." Eliza stepped onto the schoolhouse porch, Owateka beside her. She held the ledger in her hands, visible to everyone. "Mr. Merrick, I have evidence of child kidnapping and selling children. Dozens of names, dates, payments, all in your handwriting. That's company property stolen by runaways. I'm here to retrieve it. It's evidence of crimes. I'm here to give it to the federal marshal. Marshal Cooper won't be coming," Sheriff Garrett said smugly. "I sent word this morning that the situation was resolved. No need for federal involvement." A lie, but a convincing one. Eliza felt her stomach drop. Without Cooper, they had no authority to back them. It was her word against Merrick's, and Merrick had the guns. "I'll make this simple," Merrick said. "Give me the ledger, and I'll let you leave. You, the doctor, the scout, all of you. Take the girls and go. Start over somewhere else. Otherwise, I'll take it by force, and people will get hurt." "No," Eliza said. "These crimes need to be answered for. Those children deserve justice. Justice. Merrick laughed. This is the frontier, Miss Hart. Justice is what you can enforce, and I have enforcement. He gestured. His men raised their rifles. Wait. A voice from behind the schoolhouse. Grinning Tom rode into view, but he wasn't grinning now. His face was pale serious. Goldie, there's a problem. Federal marshal's already here. Rode in from the East Trail this morning just ahead of the storm. He's at the clinic right now with 20 deputies. Merrick's face darkened. You're lying. I'm not. I saw them. Cooper knows everything. It was a bluff, they hoped. Tom had agreed to help them, swayed by Owen's quiet argument that saving his own skin meant turning on Merrick before it was too late. But there was no marshal at the clinic. Not yet. Maybe not at all if Garrett's message had reached him first. Then we handle this now, Merrick said coldly. He drew his pistol. Everyone in that schoolhouse dies. We burn the ledger, and we tell Cooper it was a tragic accident during a storm. Lightning strike. Happens all the time. His men moved forward. Eliza and Ohiteka back toward the schoolhouse door. This was it, the moment when everything would either save them or destroy them. And then the rain intensified. Not a steady pour, but a deluge, turning the world to water and gray. Visibility dropped to nothing. Merrick's horse spooked rearing. Shouts erupted as the storm hit full force wind, howling rain horizontal. The canyon, Ohiteka shouted to Eliza. If they chase us into the canyon during this... He didn't finish, but she understood. Flash floods. The same danger that had threatened the girls days ago could now be their salvation or their death. Run, Dr. Ames yelled. They scattered. Ohiteka grabbed Eliza's hand and pulled her toward where the palomino was tied. They mounted together, her arms around his waist, and rode hard for the eastern canyon trails. Behind them, gunshots cracked through the storm, Merrick's men firing blind, hitting nothing. The chase was on. They rode through the storm toward Red Mesa, retracing the path Ohiteka had taken with the girls. Behind them, Merrick and his men followed, determined to recover the ledger, still tucked inside Eliza's dress, and silence everyone who knew the truth. The canyon walls rose around them, red stone turning dark with rain. Water was already flowing in the washes, gathering speed. Ohiteka pushed the palomino hard, following paths he knew, but the storm was faster. The roar of rushing water echoed off the walls, growing louder. Climb, Ohiteka shouted. He dismounted, pulling Eliza with him, and they scrambled up a narrow trail to a ledge 20 feet above the canyon floor. Just in time, the flood hit a churning brown wall of water and debris that filled the canyon bottom in seconds. Merrick and his men saw it coming. Most turned back, fleeing to higher ground. But Merrick himself, driven by greed and rage, tried to cross before the water hit. His black horse made it halfway before the current grabbed its legs. The animal screamed and went down. Merrick clung to a boulder water up to his chest, his face twisted with terror and fury. "Help!" he screamed. "Somebody help me!" For a moment, no one moved. This man had destroyed lives, sold children, built an empire on suffering. He deserved this. He deserved to drown. But Ohiteka couldn't watch anyone die, not even this. He grabbed a rope from his saddle, tied it to a juniper tree, and threw the other end to Merrick. "Grab it." Merrick caught the rope. Tom appeared on the ledge above, adding his strength to pull. Together they hauled Merrick from the water just as the flood surged higher, carrying away his horse and his gold watch and everything he'd thought made him powerful. Merrick collapsed on the ledge, coughing water, shaking. He looked at Ohiteka with pure hatred. Why save me?" "Because I'm not you," Ohiteka said simply. Merrick lunged for a pistol on the ground. One of his men's dropped in the chaos. He raised it, aiming at Eliza. Tom moved faster. He grabbed a rock and brought it down on Merrick's wrist. The pistol fell. Then Tom pinned Merrick down, his voice shaking. "I'm done. I'm done being part of this. I'm testifying. Everything. Names, dates, places. I'm buying my soul back." The storm began to ease. The floodwaters still raged, but the rain slowed to a steady fall. From the west, new riders appeared, real federal deputies, with Marshal Cooper at their head. Gustav had managed to send another telegram before the storm hit, and Cooper had ridden through the night to arrive at dawn. Tom's bluff had been the truth after all. Cooper took in the scene, Merrick wet and defeated his men, scattered the ledger safe in Eliza's hands. "Miss Hart, you've had quite a morning. Marshal, you're a welcome sight. Let's get everyone down from here and sort this out properly." They descended from the canyon carefully, once the water receded, leaving the dead horse and Merrick's pride behind. In town, Sheriff Garrett tried to flee, but was arrested by Cooper's deputies. Pike, locked in the clinic storage room, was found and taken into custody. Tom testified on the spot, naming names, describing operations, explaining routes and payments. He'd hang or spend life in prison, but he'd tell the truth first. At the impromptu trial held in the Ivory Tower Hotel's meeting room, with half the town crowded in to watch Judge Hawthorne presided. He listened to testimony from Eliza, Marion, Phoebe, Lucinda, who Owen had brought from Lightning Ridge, Dr. Ames, and Tom. He examined the ledger, the physical evidence, the crate tags from the freight wagon. The verdict came swift and hard. Julius Merrick, 20 years federal prison. Sheriff Samuel Garrett, 15 years. Ricardo Pike for his role as instigator and co-conspirator, life imprisonment. Tom for cooperation, 10 years, with possibility of parole. As Pike was led away in chains, he turned to Eliza one last time. She met his eyes steadily and said nothing. There was nothing left to say. Outside, reporters from Denver and Cheyenne crowded around taking notes. The story would spread, reforms would be demanded, investigations launched. It was cold comfort for the lives already destroyed, but it was something. In the weeks that followed, Buffalo Gap settled into a new normal. Lucinda healed under Dr. Ames's care and took a job at Sarah's school helping with the younger children. Marion and Phoebe moved into Owen's old farmhouse, with Eliza having real beds and regular meals for the first time in 4 years. They learned to laugh again, slowly. Gustav sent telegrams tracing the names from the ledger, dozens of children scattered across the country. Some were found and reunited with families. Many weren't. The ledger represented years of evil, and it would take years more to untangle even part of it. Ohiteka took a scouting contract west, but returned after 2 weeks, and then again after another week. Each return stayed a little longer. He taught Marion and Phoebe to ride patient and steady. He helped Owen with farm work. He fixed the clinic roof and repaired Sarah's schoolhouse fence. And in the evenings, he sat on Eliza's porch, drinking bitter coffee, watching the sunset paint the prairie gold and red. They didn't talk much. Words weren't necessary. Their hands would rest on the porch rail, close, but not quite touching, sharing warmth and presence. One evening in late September, as the air turned crisp with coming autumn, Marion asked, "Eliza, are you and Ohiteka courting?" Eliza nearly dropped her sewing. "We're friends." Friends who look at each other like that. Like what? Like you're each other's favorite thing in the world. Eliza's face heated, but she didn't deny it. That night, when Ohiteka came to sit on the porch, she asked him directly, "What do you want?" "Not for tomorrow, but for the future." He was quiet for a long moment, then said, "I want to stop wandering. I want a place to come back to that feels like mine. I want to watch your sisters grow up safe." I want to sit on this porch with you on winter nights and not have to leave at dawn. He paused. I want you, if you'll have me. Eliza's throat tightened. People will talk. It won't be easy. No, it won't. But nothing worth having ever is. She smiled through tears. Then yes. Stay. Build a life here. With us. His hand found hers on the porch rail, their fingers interlacing. Not hidden, not careful. Just honest. The first snow fell in November light flurries that dusted the prairie. Inside Eliza's farmhouse, Marion taught Phoebe a new song while Dr. Ames played harmonica. Sarah and Lucinda were there, and Owen and Sebastian, a chosen family forged in crisis. Ohiteka and Eliza stood on the porch watching the snow fall. Thank you, she said, for everything. Thank you for letting me stay. In the stable, the Palomino whinnied softly, the horse whose stubbornness had started everything, whose refusal to leave that canyon had led to this moment. What happens now? Eliza asked. We live. We build. We protect what we have. Ohiteka squeezed her hand. That's enough. Inside, Phoebe's laughter rang out pure, unguarded safe. Eliza leaned her head on Ohiteka's shoulder. He rested his cheek against her hair. The past couldn't be undone. The scars wouldn't fully heal. But here now, they had each other. Had family. Had hope. And that was everything.